So I'd like to go ahead and call this meeting to order. We are missing our chairman, Mr. Bob Bishop, tonight, so I'll fill in for him as we go through the agenda. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 20, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Selectboard will be conducted via remote participation. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the open session portion of the meeting may do so by viewing on Dalton Community Television on channel 1301 or via Zoom. There is a Zoom link on the agenda that was posted on the Dalton website, but you can also go to zoom.com and put in the meeting ID 881-2123-4623 with a passcode of 287143, or call direct into 1-646-558-8656 with the same meeting ID and passcode. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the open session portion of the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after this meeting. Mr. Esco, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Can't chat too.
Sure thing. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Esco. Roll call. I'm not sure. Sandra, is
No, Brittany's not able to make it, but I can record that down, the roll call, and she's going to use the tape to do the minutes.
It says recording.
The recording and the tape.
Did you press that already?
No. Yeah.
okay. So I'll go ahead and call off roll call then for the tape, and Brittany will document the minutes. Mr. Boyle.
Yes.
Mr. Esco.
Here.
Mr. Stroud. Here. Mr. Bishop is absent, and Mr. Diver is here. So next on the agenda is review of minutes from September 14th. To have a motion to accept the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the minutes as presented from September 14th.
Great, thank you, Mr. Boyle. Have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion, edits to the minutes, or all in favor to accept? I think we need to do roll call. Mr. Boyle.
Yes.
Mr. Esco.
Abstain, I wasn't present.
And Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Yeah. And okay with me. And Dan, you weren't present for the September 14th?
I was there. No, I was present. Sorry. My apologies. I was present for the 14th, not for the 28th.
Okay.
So yes, on the 14th.
Great, thank you. Moving to the minutes of September 28th. Do you have a motion to approve?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the minutes of September 28th as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Boyle. Have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Esco, abstain?
Abstain.
Mr. Bishop is absent, and I also approve to accept. Thank you, gentlemen. So go number 5 on the agenda. This is a public address to the board. This is time when the public may address the board on any item listed on the meeting agenda or any issue or matter of the town. If you intend on addressing the board at this time, we ask that you do using the Zoom link or dial into 684-611 extension 28. Please identify yourself by name, address, or the company institution you represent. Public address to the board segment will last no longer than 30 minutes. Please make your comments concise and try not to repeat statements made by others. Please address your comments to the board chair. Discussion or debate on any issue may not take place at this time. The chair designee may answer questions on procedural matters. Please be cordial and respectful of others. If anyone wishes to be recognized when the board discusses an agenda item, please make the request at this time, and the board chair may grant this request. Address comments to the board chair and be concise.
I would like to address the board.
And who's that?
Tom Callahan and 1 Melissa Way.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan. And which number, sir?
I'm sorry?
Is there an agenda item or a specific topic?
Yes, I would like to address the police chief situation.
Anyone else?
Can I go forth?
Hold on for a second, Mr. Callahan.
Yep.
Anyone else in the audience?
Joe, Richard Hall, 164 Greenridge. We don't have to be recognised for the next item, the public space
Nope,
public hearing, correct?
that's correct.
It's not a public
Thank you.
hearing.
Yep.
I just wanted that to be cleared up.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Callahan.
Thank you. About 10 minutes ago, I went down to the town hall and I dropped off copies, verbatim copies of what I would like to say. I would like to address the police chief situation. I am not current with any progress since the reporting by the Berkshire Eagle. No one has asked me to speak on their behalf, nor have I told the people I will mention that I planned on attending this meeting. My only communication with the person involved was via an email to Selectman Boyle to confirm the date and time of this meeting and to tell him I was in support of his letter to the Eagle recently. My concerns, there are 5. Each one consists of 1 or 2 sentences. Number 1, Selectman Boyle made objective points supporting his opinion, which I believe should be more supported by you folks. 2, has there been a rush to judgment influencing the Select Board's decision concerning Jeff Coe? Point here, this is not meant in any way to be a reflection on Acting Police Chief Tony Riello, whose exemplary record speaks for itself. 3, was Officer John Marley treated fairly with much of the investigation done by 1 or 2 people? On this unfortunate matter, I express sincere condolences to the family and friends of the deceased. 4, why is Officer Chris Furlong no longer acting police chief? Was his dissenting opinion on the John Marley issue the reason he is no longer in the position for which he is absolutely qualified for? And 5, has morale in the police department deteriorated to an unacceptable level? In closing, I believe Jeff Coe, John Marley, and Chris Furlong, each of whom have demonstrated professionalism and dedication to the Dalton Police Department and town for a long time, deserve reconsideration. I know you folks are in a difficult situation. I am certainly cognizant of the thankless and over expectations your positions carry. I thank you for all you do. End.
Great, thank you, Mr. Callahan.
You're welcome.
For the board members, I'd like to move on to the next items on the agenda. I'd like to make a recommendation that we move item number 7 forward and item number 10 forward. So that would be the appointment of the temporary full-time officer and then also the grant acceptance. So Chief,
Mr. Chairman, you want me to make a motion?
7 and what?
I'm sorry?
Did you want me to make a motion?
No, not yet. Nope.
Oh, okay.
No, we're just moving, if it's okay, we're moving number 7, number 10. Is that okay, John?
Fine with me?
Fine.
So we have a ratification of appointment of temporary full-time officer from our town manager, Sandra Albano. Hereby recommend for your ratification the appointment of Reserve Officer Trey Belladini to the position of temporary full-time officer. The appointment will be effective October 26, 2020 for 26 weeks. Enclosed is a recommendation of Chief Anthony Riello for your information. And I'll read that short memo from Chief Riello. Koreans on requesting to be added to the October 26, 2020 Select Board agenda for ratification, the appointment of Reserve Officer Trey Belladini to the position of temporary full-time. The appointment would be effective October 26, 2020 for 26 weeks. Officer Belladini will cover for Officer Anthony Baroli while he is attending the full-time academy. No other reserve officer was interested, and a temporary full-time. Do I have a motion to ratify this temporary full-time position or appointment?
Mr. Chairman, I recommend the appointment of Trey Beraldini as full-time, what is it?
Full-time officer.
Full-time officer.
Temp-
For a second?
Second.
Yeah.
Roll call vote, or any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, can we have a comment?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. I'd like to direct this comment to Chief Riello. Chief, maybe in the future, you put a little more meat on the bones as it applies to future appointments. Now, I recognize the familial name of Ballardini, but I don't know Mr. or Ms. Ballardini. I don't know where they live. I don't know their educational background or their work background. And this type of information is usually encumbered in any appointment. So I thank you for listening to my comment, and I hope in the future we have a little more meat on the bones. Thank you.
Can I make one comment, Joe, please?
Hold on, Sandra, I think Mr. Strout was,
Oh,
Yeah, Mr. Boyle, he's already working for us. This is for a temporary full-time position. So he's already been in front of us to be appointed as a reserve officer. So this is just for a temporary full-time position. But I understand what you're saying, but we've already had that information from him when we appointed him as a reserve officer, sir.
What was that?
When he was appointed 6 months ago.
Thank you.
Joe? Did I hear a motion for a full-time officer versus a temporary full-time officer?
that's a temporary full-time officer.
Okay, just making sure, because I thought I heard full-time officer.
So we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
You
Mr.
did-
Strout?
You did hear.
Yes.
Mr.
You
Esco?
needed to amend that motion.
Yes.
And I'm a yes.
You amend it. What are you gonna do?
Mr. Chairman, or Mr. Vice Chairman,
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mr.
Right.
if I may,
You're right.
just to address the appointment of Trey Ballardini, and yes, he has been a reserve officer for some time now, but more importantly, he has completed the field training officer program just recently, and he successfully did that by serving with full-time officers in a training capacity, and they oversaw his performance, made recommendations, and evaluated him along the way. So we're very comfortable with making this appointment. And to Mr. Boyle's concerns, absolutely, I agree. I think, and in the future, we will give you a lot more on the potential candidate. But we're very confident with him going forward. He's met, the requirements, and we're looking forward to that. And thank you for the appointment.
Great, thank you, Chief.
Yep.
Next on the agenda is grant acceptance. We have a grant acceptance resolution that the Dalton Emergency Management Department has been awarded from the Massachusetts Emergency Management Performance Grant. I'll go ahead and read the resolution into the record. Resolution of the Select Board authorizing the acceptance of a grant for the benefit of the Dalton Emergency Management Performance Grant. Whereas the Dalton Emergency Management Department has been awarded a grant of $2,700 from the Massachusetts Emergency Management Performance Grant, EPMG, and whereas the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53A, empowers the Select Board to approve the acceptance of grants or gifts or funds by any officer or department on behalf of the town. Now therefore, it is resolved that the Select Board does hereby approve of the acceptance by the Dalton Emergency Management Department of a grant of $2,700 from the Massachusetts Emergency Management Performance Grant to be used in accordance with the requirements thereof. The Select Board does hereby commend the Emergency Management Department and Director Daniel Filio his efforts in applying for the said grant. A copy of this resolution shall be transmitted to the Town of Dalton Emergency Management Director, Town Accountant, and Town Treasurer. The Town Manager is hereby authorized to execute the grant, contract, and associate documents on behalf of the town. Do I have a motion to accept this resolution and accept this grant?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Select Board accept on behalf of the Dalton Emergency Management Department a grant of $2,700.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
I'm sorry, I didn't see it, but what's the grant to be utilized for?
If I may, Mr. Deaver,
Go right ahead, Mr. Filio.
it's $2,700 is used to help offset the cost of the Code Red program for the town of Dalton.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to highlight again, thank you, Mr. Filio, for applying for these grants. Every dollar helps, so thank you, sir.
You're welcome, thank you.
Roll call vote, Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Mr. Esco,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Thank you. The next grant we have for consideration is for the Dalton Police Department. This grant, the Dalton Police Department has received a grant from the Bureau of Justice Assistance. For the Police Department will receive an award for fiscal year 2020 from the Patrick Leahy Bulletproof Vest Partnership in the amount of $2,385. This amount will allow us to purchase 6 new or replacement vests for current officers whose vests are 5 years old, as recommended by the Bulletproof Vest Partnership. I'll go ahead and read the resolution into the record for consideration. Resolution of the Select Board authorizing the acceptance of a grant for the benefit of the Dalton Police Department. Whereas the Dalton Police Department has received a grant of $2,385 from the Bureau of Justice Assistance Bulletproof Vest Partnership for fiscal year 2020 under the Bulletproof Vest Partnership. Whereas the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53A empowers the Select Board to approve the acceptance of grants or gifts or funds by any officer or department on behalf of the town. Now therefore it is resolved that the Select Board does hereby commend the Dalton Police Department for its efforts in obtaining such grant. The town manager is hereby authorized to execute a grant agreement on behalf of the town of Dalton. Any amount so received shall be deposited with the town treasurer and held as a separate account and may be expended as aforesaid by the police department without further appropriation. A copy of this resolution shall be transmitted to the town of Dalton Police Department, town accountant, and town treasurer. Do I have a motion to accept this grant?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Dalton Select Board accept the grant in the amount of $2,385 from the Department of Justice to be forwarded and utilized by the Dalton Police Department.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
maybe just a typo. The dollar amount written out is different than the dollar amount, numerical amount. I just see 51 hundredths. Is there 50 cents in there, or does it matter?
That's correct. Hold on for 1 sec. Thank you, Dan. Yeah, let me add the final. Yeah, that is a typo. It is just $2,385. I'm looking at the Patrick Leahy Bulletproof Vest Partnership spreadsheet that has the towns that received the award. So it's $2,385. Denver, can you make that correction for the resolution?
Can I make the correction on the resolution tomorrow? Is that what you're asking?
That's fine, yeah,
Yes.
just before we sign it, that's all.
Yes, I will make sure that happens.
Okay, thank you. And one other note for the agenda, just for everybody that is on, especially for the open meeting, item number 12, the sewer commission will be rescheduled. We had a little scheduling issue on that one. So now we'll move to number 6, the open space recreation plan public comment period. And just for folks that are dialed in or listening on Dalton TV, again, you can call 413-684-6111, extension 13, or you can join us here on the Zoom conference.
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe we voted on the last motion, did we?
I thought we did, Dan, but we can go back and do it. We had a motion, we had a second.
And then I made a comment.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dan, but then again, I thought I was losing my mind, so.
Roll call vote, Mr. Boyle on the resolution.
Yes.
Mr. Esco?
Yes.
Mr. Strout?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Esco. All right, moving to the open space recreation plan comment period. Mr. Filio, you got us through that? Nope, you're on mute, sir.
Thank you. Sorry for that.
I was gonna take over for him.
The Open Space Committee's been working since the spring in a very tough time with COVID going on. And what I'd like to do is turn this over to Emily Kirby. She is the representative from BRPC, who has been the cheerleader and the primary scribe for the writing the open space meeting. And she'll give a presentation, and we'll take any questions from there. And if I may, I'd also like to mention, people with comments can also send them to the planning board at planning board. Becky.
It's just planning board, not the.
Okay, planning
Sorry.
board at dalton-ma.gov. Thank you. Emily, if she may?
Emily, I just made you host. I'm not sure if you got my chat, so you're able to screen share now.
Okay, perfect. All right, I will do that now.
Sorry.
There's gotta be a better way for
Okay, can everyone see
Not
it?
this.
this. I mean, the videotaping thing.
I can't.
Yes.
You can? Okay.
Yes.
All right, perfect. So this will be just a brief overview of the open space plan that we've been working on, as Dan said, since last spring. But first and foremost, in case people don't know, I got the definition of an open space and recreation plan, or an OSRP, from the Massachusetts website. So an OSRP is a plan, is a tool through which a community plans for future of its conservation and recreation resources. OSRPs are informed by a thorough public participation process and reflect the needs of its community members. The plans are reviewed and approved by the Commonwealth to ensure that they conform to the OSRP requirements. When a community has an approved OSRP, it becomes eligible for DCS grant programs for up to 7 years. So one of the ways that we incorporated public participation was through a SurveyMonkey. We shared it widely on social media and on the website, and from that we got 174 responses from Dalton residents. Some basic outcomes of that survey showed us that the top 5 recreation activities are walking, hiking, field sports, bicycling, and gardening. And the most visited locations for recreation, which was defined as 13 or more visits per year, were rural and town roadways, Wacona High School, and Nessicus High School, Middle School? Cool. Craneville Elementary School, the Appalachian Trail, and the Boulders, which really goes along with the top 5 recreation activities of walking, hiking, bicycling, and field sports. For question 7, it was about what the improvements Dalton should use its open space and recreation funds for. Respondents said that the open space and recreation funds should go to walking paths, including along town and rural roadways, bike paths, both on and off-road, hiking trails, playgrounds, and park amenities like benches, grills, and sport playing fields. Again, reiterating the top 5 activities that we saw earlier. For question 8, we asked what the public was willing to do to support and preserve open space and recreation activities in Dalton. When asked what the residents were willing to do to support or preserve the recreation and open spaces, they said participate in maintenance and cleanup, attend a meeting or join a committee, and pay a little more in taxes if it was guaranteed for open space and recreation needs. From that survey and from meeting with the committee, we have set up 4 main goals that then are split down into different objectives and activities. And hopefully after this public comment period, we'll be able to fine-tune it even more to fit the needs of Dalton residences. So goal 1 would be expand outdoor recreational opportunities. Some objectives that is underneath that is create and expand recreational trail opportunities, expand the recreational opportunities in playgrounds and playing fields, and maintain and improve access to the pines. Goal 2, maintain and improve the quality of water resources in riparian habitat. The objectives underneath that are strengthen and support the activities of the Conservation Commission, protect and improve Center Pond as a key natural asset to the town, protect water quality within the East Branch Housatonic River watershed. Goal 3 is maintain and protect the rich natural and cultural resources of Dalton. This one has more objectives underneath it. They are protect sensitive natural areas and resources such as mountain ridges, steep slopes, rare species habitats, forested areas, and prime agricultural soils. Support local farmers and become a right to farm community. Promote preservation and conservation in the community. Pursue funding to support land conservation and protection initiatives. And establish a formal permanent open space and recreation committee to oversee implementation and update this OSRP as needed. The last goal is to promote Dalton's rich natural and cultural heritage. And the one objective underneath that is develop guides to the town assets. So that's all of the different trails and everything that you guys have in your town. So why are we here? A big part of the open space and recreation plan is the community's input. We want to hear what comments, questions, or changes you may have. If you have any, we have the plan posted up on the Dalton website, and it will be updated when I make some edits. We'll make sure to put it up there, and you can email me at ekirby@berkshireplanning.org with any comments, and I'll keep that open until November 7th. So hopefully we'll be able to get some comments or questions or any changes. I might have missed something or anything like that. So really quick presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
Ms. Kirby,
Yes.
I noticed one error on page 27. Page 27.
Okay.
It notes North Main Street. The town owns 179 acres of land.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's just plain North Street.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Emily, this is Richard. So originally, Becky just said that we're sending comments to planning at Dalton.gov, and then you said we should send comments to you. So which one?
You can send it to either. They'll come to me.
Okay.
Either way. Yeah.
Cool. The other thing is the plan doesn't have any page numbers on it. Is that possible? Because
Yeah, I will be. Yeah. Yeah, we noticed that the other day at the committee meeting. Yeah, I'll be adding those in.
Okay. And you said you can find it at the town's website, but I struggled with that. So if I struggle with it, I'm sure other people struggle with trying to find it. So
Richard, this is Becky.
Yeah.
The plan is on the home page.
Okay.
Did you maybe hit refresh since the last time you've been to the home page? Try that.
Maybe not. Yeah. I'll try to find that.
Okay. Yeah, I can. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I can send you the link, but it's just the home. It's right on the home page.
Okay. Scroll down to about a quarter way down the site. You'll see it.
Okay. And otherwise, it looks really well written. I'm not going to take up any more time. There's a couple of other comments. The only comment I did have, there wasn't a map anywhere, and I think there was a reference to maps.
Yes, I'll be adding those in, and hopefully we'll be able to get up an updated plan on the site tomorrow with the maps in it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll send that to Becky, and we can post that on the website.
Yeah, so thank you.
Yes.
Hey, Emily, it's Joe Dibber, and Dan, just a question. On the goals and objectives, that's a carryover from the 2016 master plan. Could this plan have an update on those goals from 2016 and the status of each? And
There is
the second question I had is that on section 9, when will the 5-year plan be drafted, so we can comment on that portion?
Hopefully after I gather all the comments from here.
So will there be another open comment period? if the open comments are due by the 7th and the 5-year action plan is not updated by that date?
Where is he talking about?
We have not talked about that, but, yeah, I think we would have to. Dan, do you have any?
No, we didn't want to set up the 5-year plan without allowing people to bring comments to us. So, once we have that, we can update it, and we can most certainly bring it before the board again. And once again, publicly ask for comments about what they are. But we were looking for input. We're dealing with a situation where we're supposed to have a public meeting with everybody there to talk to us. We can't do that.
Doing our best, yeah.
And we've been struggling with that, trying to get everything done in the last 6 months.
Yep.
So we're addressing things as we come up with them, and we will bring it forward to the select board again.
It's a great document, great plan so far. You know, those are just 2 pieces that I'd be interested in. And the other is that once this is done, just for education for the community, does this unlock access to additional grants, or what is the importance of this document? I think I may have missed it in your slides, and I apologize if I do, but if we can just kind of hit on that point as well, just for the public to understand the value of this important exercise, important process we're going through.
Yeah, so the open space plan will open a lot more opportunities to grants, especially DCR grants and stuff like that. One grant that we were looking at earlier before COVID hit, if we had gotten this done in time, was a park grant to help either repair some things at a park or develop a park. So that's just one example, but it opens up a lot of doors with grants. A lot of open space and recreation grants require you to have an updated plan.
In addition, other grants that come out from the state and also federal government, they'll have a question if you have a plan like this. It may not have much to do with what the system is, but they ask about open space grants, hazard mitigation grants, MVP grants. These are all things we've been getting taken care of in the last 3 or 4 years. So it is a very valuable document for that purpose.
Great, thank you, Emily, thank you, Dan.
Welcome.
Any other comments from other board members?
Mr. Chairman,
Okay, Ms. Briscoe.
I would just like to comment that, so respondents said that open space and recreation fund should go to 5 areas: walking paths, bike paths, hiking trails, playgrounds and park amenities, and sports playing fields. What I would just like to say is, under the playgrounds and park amenities, I think we've had some recent interest in skateboarding as a recreational activity in town. A lot of youth are choosing to skateboard. They may be involved in field sports too, but some of them aren't. And I would like to see the town provide some additional recreational space for that group of people. So that's my comment. Really, under the playgrounds and park amenities, I think that's where something like that would be located. I noticed there was 174 respondents. You know, we have over 6,000 people in our town, so certainly, what's the representative sampling? You know, what's the survey total that you really need to say, well, we've accurately captured the needs of the town? Just curious about that.
I'm not sure of the exact number, but I would say it's more than 174. I know that when we did this, it was just the beginning of COVID, and there were a ton of surveys going out at that time for schools, for healthcare, and everything. So a lot of people were surveyed out. We tried our best to reach all aspects: Facebook, websites. We posted it on the local TV channel without being able to go physically places and hand out flyers. It was difficult.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Dan.
Absolutely understand the challenges of getting full participation during when COVID really became a public health crisis. So I guess all I'm saying is that I think that this plan identifies a lot of key needs. I think it's wonderful. And I think that it's probably mostly accurate, but I would just, would like to just put it out there that I think that there's some other needs that may not be fully identified in this that I would like to keep, you know, in the discussion and in future planning. That's all.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I do believe I saw something about skate parks in comments on the survey. It just didn't make it to this presentation.
Yeah, Dan, that was a great call out. And just to add to that, I was just looking through my notes as I was looking at the plan earlier. The other thing that picked up was the demographic. It was mostly ages 40 to 49 responding to the surveys. So we, just getting additional voices in there along the way would be certainly helpful. Mr. Stroud?
I'm sorry, if I may. We attempted to try to get as many people, younger people, to respond to the survey. When we had people talk to us, somebody call me, somebody be on the street, we'd say, look at, excuse me, have your kids take a look at the survey. And we're not talking about young kids, we're talking teenagers that age, and to give us responses. And we got some, we didn't get as many as we wanted, but we did try to push it towards the younger group as much as we could.
Definitely an opportunity for everybody that wanted to respond could respond. I think you guys did a fabulous job on the outreach. So,
thank you.
Yep. Mr. Stroud? I think you're on mute. Maybe.
He's not, but we can't hear him.
Something's wrong then. Try again.
You could type it in the chat, maybe.
Okay. I'm just going to, Mr. Boyle, there's any additional comments? And I was going to go around and see on the Brady Bunch screen here. So, Mr. Legwell, I see you there. Any comments, sir?
Can you hear me? Well, I just want a couple different things. Number one, to Dan and to Becky and to those, the document's incredible. What they put together, from a lot of different standpoints, the history of the town and the research and the just the information, and everybody out there, just read it if you want to learn about your town, the stuff of what we have in this town. It's incredible. So I give those guys a lot of credit. It's a monumental document for a lot of different reasons. And so I want to give a shout out for that. The other thing is, I read the goals and objectives, and I'm 100% on board with all of those. Implementation is my question. I think one of the things, and you and I, Mr. Deaver, had a conversation today kind of about that, is implementing these. They're great goals and objectives, but where we seem to be lacking in the town is the a focal group to implement them. So is there anything within there, or has there been any discussion either to continue the Open Space Recreation Committee that has put this document together, have them take that next step forward to not only, when they come up with their goals and objectives in the 5-year plan, to work towards implementing that, or is there a plan to place another committee, a recreational committee that can be a liaison to the Board of Selectmen, and work on starting to prioritize and implement some of these objectives that you guys have outlined?
Yeah, so one of the objectives under Goal 3 was to establish a formal permanent open space and recreation committee to oversee the implementation and updates of this plan. And there has been talk about that at the committee meetings of what that would look like. So I do think there will be a plan, because I know the last open space and rec plan was done in 2006, and there seemed to be a lack of follow-up, so we really want to avoid that this time.
If I may, the committee that we've talked about requesting to be informed, excuse me, would be to oversee the Open Space Committee and to make sure that the goals that we've identified are being followed up on. By nature, the Open Space Committee cannot decide what can go where and what will be what. What we can do is say, wait a minute, these are the open areas in town, these are areas we think we should address. And then follow-up has to be coming from, usually through the leadership of the select board, probably through a new open space committee giving them recommendations. You take a look at a map of Dalton and you see all this open space, especially to the north of town. And it's all protected, it's all under 61. And it makes it very hard for us to identify and to suggest areas that could be, but we can't tell it, we can't specifically say, here's this piece of property, this is the way you can use it. Fortunately, we have property that has been identified at town meeting as to how it can be used, which is the way it should be, and how we support how that was done. But we have some limitations on what we can do next with it.
Thank you. Again, thank you, Dan. I appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you.
And Mark, I think we have your audio back on if you want to mute.
Yeah. Let's see. Here you go. I'm good now?
Yep, sound good.
All right. The only thing I was going to say, I would encourage everybody that has questions or they want to add comments to reach out and just get their comments heard. And I will echo what Mr. Esco said about the skateboard park, because I've heard time and time again that's one of the things that people bring up to me. So
great. Thank you, Mark. I'm just going to continue going down this list here. I'm going to look at folks that are not on a department head level, but residents. I see Mr. Douglas Boyle. Mr. Boyle, any comments on this topic?
No, I have no comments, thank you.
Okay, great. Ms. Jenny Gitlitz?
No comments on this topic.
Okay. Ms. Taylor Stubbuck?
No comments right now. Thank you, though. Thank you, everyone, for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Mr. Joe Fish?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to reiterate from Ms. Taylor Stubbuck. I just want to say thank you to everybody's hard work on this this document. I thought it was very well put together, but I do agree with the board. I'm kind of curious about the 5-year plan, including Ms. Emily Kirby. I just want to say thank you for all your hard work, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Fish. We have a couple of department heads and other department leads. John Ruffley, anything on this topic? Okay.
No, not at this time. We've been working on this open space plan with Emily, and she's been a huge help for the town, and appreciate your help, Emily, and hopefully we'll continue working together.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, John. Miss Becky Whitaker.
That's not me. What? I'm going to kill you.
Mm-hmm. And Chief Riello.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I just like kudos to Dan and to Emily. Fascinating sitting here listening to that plan. I'm sure so many months of hard work went into that, and how impressive is that, honest to God. And to hear the feedback and the suggestions for getting more folks involved. I think you guys you're on the path, man. It sounds great, and kudos to all that are involved in that. Best to you.
Great, thank you, Chief. And Dan, do you have anybody calling in on the phone line? I know you were manning that.
I have none here, but I believe we may have an email that Becky would probably paraphrase for us.
Yeah, it's a little bit long. It's from Marion Bergen. I think that's how you say her last name. Do you want me to read it? It's actually not too bad. I can read it. Ready? Can you guys hear me? All right. To the Dalton Planning Board, first I'd like to thank Cheryl Rose for sharing Dalton's draft open space and recreation plan and making us aware of the upcoming meeting. I have reviewed the draft plan and was impressed by its breadth and scope. I think it represents what would be in the town's best interest going forward. I am ready to suggest a possible additional consideration to the plan. Dalton is a great walking town. In the past, I have enjoyed walking our neighborhood with my dog several times a day. Unfortunately, in recent years, True Green has done massive campaign to enlist new customers. I think she means campaigning. resulting in a high enough density of homes electing their service, and I am no longer comfortable walking with our dogs safely in our neighborhood, and instead use the rail trail. I am concerned people are not aware of how toxic the spraying is to both our personal health and the environment. I know we cannot limit people's use of services like True Green, but possibly an awareness flyer could be generated to sensitize people to the risks of using such services. As noted in the plan, elements of Dalton's infrastructure are in need of our attention. I totally agree and was so pleased to read it. I had a fall on High Street several years back before the recent repairs, resulting in an injury to my right arm, which still plagues me on occasion. An elderly woman came to me for acupuncture after falling on Flansburgh Ave due to uneven sidewalks. Immediately after the fall, she went to the fire department where they thoughtfully provided first aid. I'm sure we are not isolated cases, which underscores the importance as outlined in the plan for the town to invest in sidewalk repair, along with roads, bridges, and waterways are all critical importance. I am concerned, though, that the construction of the new high school likely will stretch our tax base to the point that financial support for stabilization of infrastructure from town taxes will be limited, making maintaining infrastructure and recreation a very challenging issue. I hope these comments will help the planning board deliberations going forward. Lastly, I'd like to thank you for your service to our community and the opportunity to comment. I think she means open space, but because of the email address.
Thank you, Becky. If you can forward that to Sandra to make sure we have a copy for the record, that would be helpful. And thank you for
I will
reading
do that right now. And can I just, could we specify True Green is like what, like weed killer, or I don't know what it is?
It's a lawn care company that comes in and treats your lawn to make it green.
Hence True Green, right? I'm done.
Great, thank you, everybody. If there's no other comments, we'll close out this section. Just going once, going twice. Great conversation, great discussion, and keep up the great work. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Deaver.
Thank you, Mr. Peter.
Thank you.
Going on to the next agenda item is number 8, which is the update from the Board of Health. Jen?
What is wrong with me? True Green.
Thank you, Mr. Diver. So yeah, I have just a couple of things. One is, we haven't actually met since the Board of Health had made its recommendation to not post hours, and also encouraging people to avoid high-risk activities like door-to-door trick-or-treating, and instead do things like the program that was going to be provided by the CRA, Grow Dalton, and the Dalton Cultural Council. So I sent to the Selectboard right before the meeting started that flyer, and you will see that starting to be circulated. The Halloween Family Walk is what it's called, and it's going to be on Halloween, October 31st, from 4 to 8 p.m. It's going to be free, and it's mostly appropriate for children 12 and under. It's available to all students from Central Berkshire Regional School District, and there's just a registration process, and you can do that through contacting the CRA, and it gave the number on the flyer. And so I think this is an incredible community partnership. I think we're really lucky to have organization like, well, in this case, it's the CRA, Grow Dalton, and the Dalton Cultural Council, but just to have that infrastructure for them to step up and do a safe Halloween activity this year, when it's, we want to balance normalcy with public health, especially during this time period where cases are rising around the country and in Massachusetts, although not necessarily in Dalton, thankfully, yet. So I just want to give them a thank you. Is there any questions about that process, or?
Yes, did it work?
Okay.
No, and it's great to have a community organization step up, so thank you to them for their leadership in that as well.
So I don't know exactly what order everything is at, but so the next subject really has to do with solid waste. Let me see, my computer just losing power, so let me just plug it in real quick. Solid waste. So we've had some progress on solid waste as far as talking to Pittsfield and really looking at what our options are and what our next steps are. You will have in your mailbox a summary of where we're at with that. I probably late enough that you guys probably wouldn't want me to share that screen. So if someone would like me to, we certainly can figure that out. But essentially, we looked at two different options, and the option that we're really striving for was for the haulers to be able to tip their recycling at the community eco power plant. And there was a variety of reasons for that. We have hit just some conversation with Pittsfield, ironing out some details about how it's going to happen, and as far as the flow of money and who pays and when, and we're actively in the process of working that out with that. And then the option B was the Dalton transfer station, and Sandy and I had talked about it as early as this week, kind of looping back around, but even talking again with Casella, you know, there's some issues there, including that we don't have a scale, and also that with our current setup, the paper would need to be offloaded by hand, which would be not that efficient versus going to the tipping floor at Community Eco Power. So, so you do have an update for that, and it has some next steps, and that really leads into the next thing, which really has to do with, you know, there are some things that we need to do from the town of Dalton. The first one really has to do with hire our education enforcement coordinator. We have a draft job description, and one of the things that I'd like to find out what the next process for is, you know, what is that process for advertising for that position? We have the money. We're anticipating getting that grant granted to us in the next month. So if we started now to advertise, then by the time the money came in November, we would be set to go ahead and keep that process going. You know, we've been in works with identifying the haulers that would even use that service. Casella obviously has more infrastructure, and they will be probably using their own, but like George Bowman will likely be using whatever we are going to set up, which is very timely because the Board of Health voted to have a soft implementation of the regulations that require the haulers to provide recycling as a lump service, and so that has a soft opening of the beginning of November, and then we're anticipating that enforcement wouldn't start until probably April or so. But we needed to have that on the books for DEP to consider as a serious candidate for providing the money for that EEC person. You know, we're still working out on, you know, there's money here, there's different kinds of accounts, so we're working on getting the right kind of account. And of course, working with the Pittsfield to get that those details lined up as far as what the costs are going to be for additional hauling, as well as if there's going to be any administrative fees. So that's something that we're trying to work on. And then we really need to get after all of that, we need to be able to tell the haulers exactly what their cost is going to be to tip their recycling, you know, hopefully at the Community Eco Power plant. And so, you know, I know that we've been talking about this for a while, and, you know, we'll make some big progress and then it will stop for a little while. But, you know, there really is a push. There's been even conversation this week around it. So I'm hoping that we'll have some real clarity, especially for those haulers that are really chomping at the bit to start to provide recycling. So, before I go on to talk about the solid waste and the Waste Management and Recycling Committee, is there any questions that you guys have as far as where we're at with that, with the solid waste program and the recycling regulations, and, you know, where we are at this moment in time?
No questions. A lot of great progress there, Jane. So thank you for that. And then sounded like you had a question about posting that position. So, Sandra, would that be something Jane just connects with you on, you work through town manager on that? Is there something from the select board we need?
No, that's something that Jane can work with me on.
Position.
Oh, sorry, I'm muted.
I'm not sure if Sandra heard that.
So that is something that I will be able to work with Jane on. So she can come and see me, and we can get a ad drafted and send it where we think we need to send it.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Any other comments from any board members?
Mr. Chairman, Jane, if I could just circle back to the Halloween thing?
Yes,
just to make it crystal clear to the public and residents of Dalton that the Board of Selectmen or Board of Health is not authorizing any door-to-door trick-or-treating this year. There have been other programs or events scheduled for children, and hopefully they'll take advantage. But as far as the traditional trick-or-treating door-to-door, that has been canceled. Am I correct in stating that?
Yes, sir, you are correct.
Just so the message gets out there loud and clear. Thank you.
That's a great question, Mr. Boyle, and Jane, just to clarify that, because the press release discouraged it, but didn't necessarily formally cancel it or enforce a cancellation. So I think there is confusion on that.
Oh, yes. Yeah, it was recommended strongly that there was going to be no trick-or-treating and there were no hours set. Mm-hmm. So, the whole canceling, I think that Dalton has historically had hours, and in case of rain, Dalton has canceled it. So yeah, there is some wording there, but it's strongly discouraged and no hours have been set, which and it's strongly discouraged.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just quick follow-up question.
Sure.
We're talking about events, and our Light Up the Holidays event is traditionally the first 10 days of December. Has the Board of Health have a recommendation, or has that been canceled, or do we have a status update on that?
John, will you mind asking that question again?
Okay. Traditionally, we have the Light Up the Town, Light Up Dalton festivities the first week in December on a Saturday. A town-wide festival, so to speak. Has the Board of Health have a recommendation about that going forward, or has that been canceled also?
No, it will be addressed at the next meeting. Thank you for bringing that up. Being new to the community, that's good. I'll talk about it with the Board of Health, and unless you guys have something that you want to
well, there's a committee. I'm sure they're waiting for a word whether they should go forward or not. I forget who the chairman is. There's a committee for Light Up the Dalton Holidays, and as soon as you can get the word to them, I'm sure they'd be happy, because there's a lot of planning and arrangements that has to be made for this festival. What is the next
it really depends on the actual interactions with something like that. Like, for instance, if it's a passive thing where people are walking with their household members through a beautiful area, that would be one thing. If it was a lot of interaction with other people, then that would be entirely another. So thank you so much for that. And if anyone could send me the
it's definitely the second.
What's that?
It's definitely the second item you mentioned. There's kind of a large interaction with people, and there's events where it attract large crowds, like at the CRA and the various banks and churches. So I think there's definitely an issue there. And what is the next Board of Health meeting?
It's always the first Monday of every month. So it's coming right up, isn't it? Next week.
November 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. That should be enough time. Yep.
Thank you.
Great call out, Mr. Boyle. Jane, you want to go on the Waste Management Committee?
Sure. All right. So there's a lot to do with waste management. It's not only an important thing, but also it's something that I feel like it's really important that it's done correctly. So there had been a proposal for a waste management recycling committee, and I had received a draft from Mr. Diver about kind of what was envisioned for that committee, and so I have taken some time to kind of look it over and review it and really prioritize the things that I feel like the Board of Health needs help with. I think first and foremost, it's support to really think out some of this logistics around the tipping and helping with some of the decisions around, should the haulers pay CEP directly, or should they just get or should we just get the numbers and charge them? Those types of things, are, I think, A, really important, and B, best not left up to one person. So that's something that would be very helpful. That we have the transfer station contract. We have an opportunity to renegotiate that after 1 year. Having the voices on, where we're at Dalton, and by then we'll also know what the costs are and what the actual tonnages are. So we'll have something solid to talk about. That's something that I feel like it would be really helpful to have a group of people work on. Once we get our education and enforcement coordinator, that work is going to be a lot of education. It's going to be a lot of reaching out to haulers, reaching out to community members, and then also really deciding, what compliance looks like and getting that word out. So having a group of people to help, kind of a steering committee, if you will, to kind of touch base with that EEC coordinator, in addition to myself, would be really helpful. Providing recommendations and to improve recycling levels in the town buildings, and also encouraging the purchasing of recycled contented items. That's something that's really important, and is something that we're required to do. And it would be really helpful to have a group of people really focus in on that and look to see where we're at. We've talked about things like bulky waste and organics and solid waste. What is the best option for Dalton, which could also include, whether or not we want to continue in the future to contract with a third party, or if we wanted to take on that responsibility for the transfer station. So in addition to grants, those are all things that you can see that a lot of meetings could be eaten up talking about these issues. So this proposal is for there to be a formation of a waste management and recycling committee. It would be an advisory committee, primarily to the Board of Health and town manager. We would be doing summary reports or formal presentations to the Board of Health, the town manager, or Selectboard as needed, and then also putting something in the annual town report. And it would be centered around solid waste, which impacts every single resident in the town of Dalton. So that's kind of the scope of what I envision this committee to be. And so I don't know if how things happen in Dalton for this to move forward. One of the things that I really looked at was the makeup. So I would be part of this group, as with the education and enforcement coordinator, which obviously hasn't been hired yet. I also felt like it was really important to have some industry, and also include John Ruffley on the committee. I did ask him if he would be willing to do that, and he was positive about that. Only because, and the biggest thing that John will bring to it is he has control and an understanding of the actual physical facilities, and I think he would bring a great perspective to the group. We were anticipating that there would be a select board member, a finance committee member, an industry representative, which Carrie Bowman has said that she would be interested in participating in the conversation. A Green Dalton committee member, and then a woman named Lynn Clements has also said that she would be interested in participating. So So there's the kind of the makeup of it that, in my mind, would really lead to really productive meetings and, really bringing a lot of perspectives to the table. So I don't know what this process looks like. A copy of what my proposal has been emailed to you. I'm sorry it was kind of late today that I emailed it. What I'd like to ask for the select board is, whatever needs to happen to form this committee and get some of those appointments in. B, instead of actually assigning one of you to this, have some conversation around, who would like to be on this committee. And I think that there's some good candidates on the select board, and so I just leave that in your hands. So, are there any questions about this?
Yeah,
go
ahead, John.
Jay, one question. You mentioned the name of a potential applicant for this committee, and the name was Bowman. Now we have two major trucking companies in town that are owned by Bowmans. I'm just raising the question: is there any potential for a conflict of interest here?
That's a good observation. Yep. For me, John, it was weighing out. We need to make sure that it's working for the haulers. So whether or not they're a member, or if we just ask if haulers want to come to the meeting. I mean, I think that that's a very valid point. I don't want for this committee to be something that doesn't work for the haulers.
Right.
That's my concern, and I don't
understand, know. But it just raised a red flag as soon as I heard that name.
Sure.
Great call out. And just for a little more background, because Dan, for Mr. Esco, I think this started before you joined the board. I'm not sure or not, but it was a recommendation I brought forward to the board a few months back, and the board approved the recommendation of forming this committee, and then Mr. Walto also reviewed it with town council, and town council approved that we could form such a committee. There was one in town prior. And so with Jane's new role coming on board full time, certainly deferred to Jane's view of how this committee can be most helpful to the town through the Board of Health. Have her have enough time to evaluate where things are, what the process is, with how it can be most helpful, and that's where we are at this point. And Jane, really, what we would look forward to is for yourself and Sandra to review the list of those potential folks to be on the committee, and then have a formal nomination process back to the board for approval, and then they would get letters, et cetera, and then certainly for this board, tonight or another meeting, we can entertain whoever would like to step forward and be part of that committee. Certainly could do so, and then go from there. So,
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I recall this coming before the select board, at least the approval of the committee initially. And I was going to ask, is this different or separate from that vote authorizing it? And it's the same, so thank you.
It is my understanding that the Green Committee has a meeting. I happened to see it on the wall when I was outside the town clerk's office today. So I believe they have a meeting on Wednesday. And so I felt like if it was going to be a committee member from there, that maybe leaving it up to them to choose who they would like to be a representative. I don't know if that's appropriate or not.
yeah, I think that's fine, and we can have David put that on the agenda, and we can get a formal kind of review there done too. We've been talking about this for a while, so I think a lot of people are eager to have it move forward and then be as most helpful as possible. So for sure. So I think we can structure the rest of the panel and then come back to the board, and we can figure out who the board member would be, unless somebody wants to step forward this evening, but we can do it on a separate agenda item too. Was that all for the update, Jane? That was a very good update.
It was a lot of words. But if anyone has any questions for me, it is something that is a priority. I'm sorry that I really wanted to have something firm for you guys. I wanted to have that contract in hand. It didn't happen. You know, Sandy's been great at helping flush out some of the details of money, she's a great person to have on that conversation.
Thank you so much, Jane. Great update. Appreciate it. Let's move on to number 9, the Main Street and River Street crosswalk updates. This is kind of tied to the shared street grant as well. Not sure who to tee this one up to, Sandra or Dan?
I can fill you in if you want on
yes,
what I've done so far. All the contracts are signed with the engineer, Fuss and O'Neill. The ball's kind of in their court right now. They're doing they're putting the list of bidders together for the project, and they're actually going to be the ones to put it out to bid for us. And that's, I guess, pretty much it. We're just waiting on them. I think the last contract was signed last week, so and they know we're on a time crunch, obviously. So
is there any risk to not hitting the dates for the grant money at all? Because I can't recall what the deadline is on those dates to have work completed to access those dollars.
No, I believe the state is aware of our situation, and as long as we had a plan in place, and I think they were going to give us a little leeway on the actual, as long as we started construction before the date. I don't have the date in front of me either. Sandy, do you have any input on that?
I just want to make a comment that we have the money from the grant already. They sent it to us within a week. So the money is in the coffers right now. So I'm assuming if we run into an issue, they'll grant an extension because they've already sent us the money. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think because it was, the state was so involved with the project, there weren't going to be any issues. They've been in the loop on the whole project and the process, obviously. It was all hinging on their approval. So the state is kind of what held us up from the start.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we don't lose the grant dollars, because the way I read it is that grant dollars would be at risk if we don't hit those deadlines, and even the dollars in our coffers could be recalled. So I just want to make sure we have clarification on that specifically. I know we funded the project through capital planning a couple of years ago, but now we have the shared street grants, which covers that cost. So I want to make sure we do not risk losing those dollars.
If I may, Mr. Beaver.
Good, Mr. Filio.
I have had conversations there's an oversight group that contacts the town about it. They've contacted me. They are fully aware that we were waiting for our permits to be issued, and that we did not receive the permits until after we received the grant, and also that we have to follow all the guidelines of Mass DOT. And they seem to be very, as John said, they're very helpful, and they're very understanding of what we've been dealing with. So if that'll help at all in considerations.
Yeah. Great, absolutely. Thank you, Dan. Any other comments from other board members? Questions? No? Okay. All right. Thank you, John, Dan, Sandra. Thank you. That was helpful.
Welcome.
Next one is number 11 on the agenda, which is the Select Board minutes of June 29th, 2020. And this is regarding the departmental transfer revision. Sandra, can you walk us through this?
Sure can. I'm assuming you have the documents that were put in with the agenda with the page of the minutes that are in question, and also a copy of the transfer that was requested. Do you have those documents?
Yes.
Yes.
So what I'm looking to do is correct the minutes of the transfer from the communications department account to the separation agreement account for the police department. When the transfer request was presented, the balance that was asked for to be transferred was the present balance in the account of 110,000 versus the transfer amount requested as 100,000. So that was so moved, and never, the amount was never called out again. And so then therefore, because the amount of 110,000 was so moved, that's what was written in the meeting minutes, when the actual transfer amount was only supposed to be $100,000. So that's what I'm looking to correct, and I'm not exactly sure how we go about doing that.
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy. I think we just need to have a motion here to amend the June 29th, 2020 minutes regarding interdepartmental transfers, and then amended Mr. Holden's motion to accept the transfer of 110K and amend that to 100,000. I think that's the correction.
That's what I'm looking to do, just to, because we listened to the video and we did hear the word 110,000.
Yeah.
So that was incorrectly stated.
Any other board members for a comment?
I think that's the correct approach, Mr. Chairman, to amend the actions of June 29th?
Yes.
June 29, 2020. Yep. All right, can I have a motion to make that correction or amendment?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the actions of on 6/29/20, the actions be amended to read the transfer amount is to be $100,000.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Esco?
I'm going to abstain. I was not present at that meeting.
Thank you, Dan. And then I'll be a yes as well. And that should resolve that, Sandra. What do you think?
I think it will. Thank you so much for helping me out with that.
Absolutely, no problem. Okay, so we are going to reschedule number 12 for the for the sewer commission. And so then moving on to 13, just for a police chief search committee update, and this is just a quick verbal update. We have a couple of things that we've gone through over the last couple of months. We have 16 resumes, and maybe 5 that kind of bubble up. But one of the things that the committee has also reviewed from a learning process is learning from a couple different firms that provide services to towns when it comes to police chief searches, including chief assessment programs, community engagement programs, etc. So the committee has recommended that we do use a service such as that, and the funded or the cost on average is about $8,000 to $9,000. So what I'd like to do before we can't go into procure these services, but until we have funding. So what I'd like to make a motion here is to request a review of those services, of the services scope, to our finance committee, and recommend recommend their review of potentially funding that ask. And then if we do have funding approval, then we would come back to this committee for approval of that program. If you kind of look at the tick and tie here, if you will. So a service rundown would be a review of candidates that we have, and again, we have about 16 resumes. That would be one part of the service. The second part would be bubbling up to the top 3 or 4 to then be interviewed initially by the search committee. a chief of police assessment exam. And then from that, one of the things that we learned and talked to a number of people about is think of it as community panels. If you have like 4 tables of 3 people, including Sandra as town manager, maybe the fire chief, a couple of department heads, some community members, and have an interview panel there. And then a community event, which would be kind of like an hour, hour and a half, come meet the final candidates and have community members just have an open dialogue. And then the selection committee would then take all that information and guidance with Chief Briello and this outside firm to then make a recommendation to the select board of the top 2 to 3 candidates for selection at that point. And the reason that the committee has made this recommendation is just when you look at the resumes of officers and leaders for this position, we want to make sure as a committee that we understand truly what they're bringing to the table. So often you can have resumes that just look great on paper, but at the end of the day, what's behind the scenes? Somebody really do help us with the due diligence of that selection, because it is a very important selection for the town. So with that, I'd just like to make a motion. And Sandra, keep me on the guardrails here, because we talked about this before. We talked about it earlier today. So I'd like to make a motion that we request a funding review by our finance committee for a sum of between $8,000 to $9,000 from reserve funds for this program. And that will then be reviewed by the select board for final decision if that committee can leverage such services. And if approved, then the town manager would help us navigate that through standard procurement procedures. Sandra, did I get that correct?
Yes, I believe you did.
Okay. So looking for
Joe, it's Mark.
Go ahead, Mark.
I think it's a great idea. I think it's a big investment. I think that's something we absolutely should be doing. So I'll second your motion.
Great. So we got a motion and a second. Discussion. Okay. Roll call vote. Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Esco?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Thank you. And just to let you know that the committee, I think everybody's aware of the committee members, but the work that they're doing is fantastic. And I want to take a moment and just give a shout out. I'm not sure if he listens to these or not, but Sergeant Powell is on that committee and he's doing fabulous work. He is a tremendous resource and providing great leadership to that group. So Sergeant Powell, thank you. Going to 14, oh, so I skipped something. Yeah, 14, town manager update. Sandra?
I don't think I have anything to report.
Okay.
Unless anybody has questions for me.
How are things going? Anything we can help you with?
Sure, the accounting job.
Yeah. And that's the thing, just for our town, you are covering 2 major roles in our town, and again, thank you for that.
Sure. My pleasure.
Items for future agenda. One thing I did make a note of with Mr. Boyle, your comments about light up the holidays, I'm just going to put that on our list to make sure we get that update from Board of Health. So
yeah, that'd be good. They may have already made a decision to cancel it.
They may have.
We just don't know. I haven't heard or read anything from the committee.
Okay. Any other items for future agenda? Okay. Hearing none. Remarks to the select board.
Mr. Chairman, on the agenda thing there, the second thing down, moving the annual town meeting and election, possibly we could cross that off.
Okay. Yep. All right.
Thank you.
That, John? Yep. And the recycle committee is the one we just talked about for waste management with Jane, so that's going to come back around. Okay. Any remarks from the select board? Okay, hearing none. Select board chair updates. Mr. Bishop's not here, so we will postpone that. He didn't give me anything, any discussion points there. So announcements. So the town hall is now open during usual hours from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Wednesday and 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Thursday. Masks are required and social distancing must be observed. The annual Veterans Day luncheon at the Senior Center will be canceled. There will be a changing of the flag ceremony outdoors at 11:30 a.m. on Friday, November 6, 2020. This year's flag will be raised in honor of World War I veteran Corporal George Cardarson. I hope I got his last name right. Can anybody correct me if I didn't?
World War II, Joe.
World War II? That's the other correction. Okay, I got World War I. Thank you, John.
And I believe his last name is Cardarson?
Yeah, it's Cardasen.
Yeah.
Cardason.
That's
Thank
right.
you. Thank you both for the corrections. World War II veteran Corporal George Cardason, Jr., U.S. Army. Masking and social distancing will be observed outside at the Senior Center. So for reasons, we're now moving on to significant drought for regions in level 2. Residents and businesses minimize overall water use, limit outdoor water into handheld hoses or watering cans to be used only after 5 p.m. or before 9 a.m. 1 day a week. Immediate steps for communities: adopt and implement the state's non-essential outdoor water use restrictions for drought. Level 2 restrictions call for limited outdoor water into handheld or watering cans to be used only after 5 p.m. or before 9 a.m. Limit or prohibit installation of new sod, seeding, and or landscaping, watering during or within 48 hours after measurable rainfall. Washing operation of non-recirculating fountains, filling of swimming pools, hot tubs, and backyard informal rinks. Implement drought surcharge or seasonal water rates. Establish water use reduction targets for all water users. Identify top water users and conduct targeted outreach to help curb their use. Transfer station, new FY21 prices. The sticker price for first vehicle is $115. Second vehicle is $40. The bag price is 30-gallon bag, $4. Package of 10 is $40. 50-gallon bag, which is small, $3.30. Package of 10, $33. For a complete list, go to daltonmass.gov and click on the transfer station button. New hours for compost and brush area, Tuesdays and Wednesdays from 2 to 5, Friday and Saturday from 8 to 3. A message from the Dalton Police Department. The police department is now open to the public. The Dalton Police Department lobby is now open. Please feel free to stop in and see an officer. Social distancing and masks are required and only 2 people are allowed in the lobby at a time. Processing of firearm permits. Firearm permits are processed between the hours of 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. by appointment only. Please call 413-684-0300 to schedule your appointment. No walk-ins are being accepted at this time. A check or money order for $100 made payable to the town of Dalton. Renewals over the age of 70 are free. The Dalton Library is now open 12 to 5 on Monday, Thursday, and Friday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Tuesday, and 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Wednesday. Anyone in the high-risk population may schedule time in the a.m. to come in by themselves with no questions asked. Lobby pickup continues for anyone who would rather not enter the building. Call 684-6112 for more information. And one thing I feel to mention on the remarks to the select board, gentlemen, is I just want to give a shout out to our town clerk's office during this election season. I know they get a tremendous volume of mail-in ballots, and the work that they're doing is just phenomenal. So it's a busy time of the year for them. So if you have a chance, stop by, give them a little pat on the back, grab some coffee for them, whatever the case might be. But with that, any additional comments? And I'd be entertaining a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
Mr. Esco?
Yes.
Mr. Strout?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Thank you, everyone, for a great conversation, dialogue tonight, and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Good night.